Hey, today we're going to have a little convo about Lilly Singh's recent antics. I'm going to be having this conversation alongside Priya Singh. She's a digital marketing and PR expert and a very close colleague of mine. And we're going to just give that perspective from the Indo Caribbean community and why this bothered us on a certain level. What is the biggest thing that stands out to you as to why this was not okay?
As an Indo-Caribbean woman, my whole entire life has to be explaining my identity. And Lily's comfortability and ease of just putting on our identity, because as a brown woman, as an Indian woman, and her proximity to or her experience living in Toronto, she feels, it seems like because she is brown, that she's able to easily wear on that identity. And because of her proximity to Indo-Caribbean people, it makes her accessible to our culture. And where we even have struggled to find a voice within, North American countries, to be confident in who we are and to find space to say, no, we exist too, regardless of how niche our community or culture is. Like, that in itself is problematic. The fact that, like, we've struggled so much to have a voice, and we've had to even struggle to even say we belong in our own Caribbean diaspora amongst Caribbean people, and then explain that to American people in the world. And now we have to have her blatantly take from our culture, wear our identity to say, oh, this is okay because I'm Lilly Singh and I'm brown.
Right. I think that is the big headline of the entire thing. And to watch an Indian person not acknowledge the really heavy history that exists behind the brownness in the Caribbean, that was
Right.
step back from all of us, which I know you can agree on. It was just like, okay, we work every day to come to terms with this loss. And we work every day to build a new identity in the Caribbean. And it's
Mhm.
a hard job.
Okay, like, hi, I'm doing you a favor. Now you should feel represented and empowered, because me, Lilly Singh, I did this song and I'm brown too. And it's like, no, this is your own personal struggle, my girl. Like, it's not one in the same just because you are brown. It's like you, and to kind of use Pakistanis and Indians, they are both brown, but they both identify strongly Indian, Pakistani. So
Exactly.
now how come when it comes to us as Indo-Caribbeans, that distinction is blurred? You're going through identity issues, own that as your own problem, and not try to like project that onto our community as if we are sharing the same issues just because you and I are brown. Because I think, like, going
Oh,
back,
that's key. That's key.
right, right,
Sorry.
we have developed and evolved our own culture, and you find that to be cool because you live in a metropolitan city, it doesn't make it okay.
Honestly,
That's all, period.
I can exactly. I feel the need to end it right there because you touched on everything that needed to be said and needed to be acknowledged. And it was the fact that Indian does not equal Indo Caribbean. And if
Right.
you choose to, Indo Caribbean can equal Indian because that's their right as a hyphenated identity to say that it goes that way. It can go this way, but it doesn't go this way. And I really love that you brought up the point that within South Asian communities, they are very protective of their identities. And even though they have all kind of originated from the same continent and have like very shared histories, once they branched off and put those borders in place, those
Right.
creative borders, they said, no, this is how we're different. And they stick to that 100%. And people don't really flow into one another's cultures that way. So it's time we draw the line and draw our border. Even though we have an ocean between us, apparently we got to draw an actual border to make it clear. Well, this conversation is us drawing the border that you don't cross this line, that we
Right.
over here with our unique struggles on the Western side, and we've had to develop and cultivate what culture and identity means for us in an entirely new space. This isn't something to celebrate or be happy that we're seeing something relatable because it isn't relatable. This is not a representation of who we are as a people.
Absolutely.
And if there's anything else you'd like to add before we bring in Nadia for her commentary, I would love to hear any closing thoughts from you or anything you want your community to know and feel and understand, um, and like what the takeaway from this Lily video and entire scenario is to you.
I think, like I mentioned, acceptance is key.
Mhm.
If you're not comfortable in your own identity, people are not going to accept you. And You need to show up to the table and be confident. It doesn't matter if they question you. You don't default into a convenience in that moment, or you don't default into this Indian identity for the sake of conveniently explaining who you are. That is not your obligation or your job to the world. You show up to the table exactly who you are as an Indo-Caribbean person. And we need to, as individual people, find empowerment in who we are, and that's something that we all personally have to sit with. The only way we're going to come together as a community is by each of us accepting ourselves first, and then starting to extend that olive branch of acceptance amongst the other people that share the same culture as you within the community.
I'm glad we were able to have this conversation about Lilly in terms of how our actions impacted the Indo-Caribbean community. And now we want to take a second and listen to a member of the Afro-Caribbean community express their concerns over her recent Instagram post, what her thoughts are, and how this affects the Afro-Caribbean community specifically. We're so happy to have Seycon Nadia join us in this conversation, and she's going to give her feelings on this matter. She's a performance artist, she's a cultural educator, and she's an activist. So we will get right into her thoughts as soon as I pose these questions to her. So Nadia, my questions to you would be, I want to hear what your thoughts are on when we speak about this Lilly Singh clip. How do you feel that pertains to anti-Blackness that may stem from the South Asian community, and how does that trickle down even into the Indo-Caribbean community, and what are your thoughts there? In addition to that, I just want you to also express your thoughts on how her behavior might be enabled by Afro-Caribbean soca artists who have really invited her into the space and onto the stage, may have given her the rite of passage to do what she does, and is it their responsibility now to give her that education and reel in the damage that's been done, or whose responsibility is it? And the last thing I want you to touch on is a free-range space for you to just speak on your feelings. What did this unearth for you? Did you feel uncomfortable? Why were you uncomfortable if you were? And anything else you'd like to add in about this video specifically, and how we can move on from this as a community and prevent things like this from happening again. Is my mute?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, getting straight into it. So first, I want to acknowledge that my perspective is that of a Jamaican American, and there's always a difference between us living that hyphenated existence versus actual islanders. So a big problem that we have off rip is that so many of us are demonized for speaking our patois or broken, bad English. And so for her to try to mimic the accent, that was extremely problematic. And I saw a lot of people giving her a pass because she's from Toronto, Scarborough, exactly, which is heavily populated with a Caribbean community. But the problem in general with these people of color spaces is that it doesn't go, the sharing of cultures doesn't seem to go both ways. So in the way that she was just able to, I want to be Trinidadian, or I want to show my love for soca or dancehall, me as an Afro-Caribbean person, I don't think I can just pick up something from Punjabi culture and, you know, nobody would say boo. I don't think I could wear a bindi and there wouldn't be a problem. So that whole conversation needs to happen within the community. I do feel like with actual islanders, there is a form or a sense of appreciation just because this is a famous person acknowledging who they are and where they're from. But for those of us living here in North America, both US and Canada, it definitely impacts us negatively because, again, our culture is not a costume. It's not this caricature thing that you just pick up because it's cool. These are our lived experiences. This is our heritage. This is our spirituality. And so for her to do that was extremely insensitive. And the fact that people have reached out to her, I'm not sure how, like via email, or if anybody has that type of contact with her, but even on her social media platforms, people will leave comments addressing, some being rude and some politely saying, hey, we don't like this, we're Indo-Caribbean, we're Caribbean, we're Afro-Caribbean, whatever, and they'll try to politely explain. And I have seen her not only just delete the comment, but actually block the person, which kind of makes me feel as though she doesn't really care about being inclusive or how we feel about it, and she wants to do what she wants to do. I kind of feel like, again, celebrities have more of an allegiance to their colleagues, which is other celebrities, more than the actual communities they come from. So it's up to us as a community to put our foot down and say, we're not supporting certain things.
Honestly, exactly, I think how many people have felt about this. It's that, yes, of course, we're not saying that other people shouldn't celebrate or go to carnival or indulge in the culture or get to experience it. But, you know, there's a line that we draw between experiencing and ownership, which I think her post is really what was pushed in our faces. It was like her coming out and saying like, well, this is my space to own now. And I would love for you to touch on that and what it means as a Jamaican person, where dance hall originated from there, and the fact that she kind of sent this message out to say that I didn't notice there was a positive female version of the song, which there's a female version, and you can speak on that too, and felt like it was her given right to then go ahead and make that version. And also what that means about her commentary on saying what is empowering to dance hall. Like, how can a non-Afro-Caribbean person determine what is an empowering message? Just given the context of what dance hall is and what that empowerment might mean and might look differently from someone from the outside, and how her perception can basically tarnish what that value is.
Absolutely. So let's go on record saying that she didn't give credit to the originator of the song, Problematic. The producer or writer, somebody who actually commented on the post, acknowledged that they didn't appreciate it. So as far as her trying to do women empowerment, you don't even have an acknowledgement for these so-called women that you're empowering. And it was just a moment for her to go viral, a moment for her to get some attention with something controversial. We don't want it. I don't feel represented. I feel
empowered.
Mocked. Yeah, I don't feel represented, empowered. I feel mocked, if anything. And I get it. She's friends with Marshall, and I don't know. Maybe I didn't get the memo that that type of proximity to a Caribbean artist makes you a Caribbean artist. I could be late. I don't know everything. But yeah, it was just a bad move. I really wish she would just address it instead of being so entitled. It's hard to back her up with her sense of entitlement. You know, there's that very, very thin line between appropriation and appreciation, and Miss Singh seems to cross it a lot across the border. Because again, there has always been this underlying thing that Caribbean culture and also Black American culture are a free-for-all. You know, and people consume it so much via like film, television, music, that they don't even recognize it as Black culture or Caribbean culture. And nobody likes to acknowledge that they're privileged, especially other people of color. So yeah, as far as what it means for us, again, I cannot speak for everybody. I'm speaking from a very Western Indian American perspective, but we don't want it. Yeah, that's all. Like, we don't want it. We don't want it. That's all.
I think that that's the biggest sentiment, and Priya can feel free to chime in here.
You grew up in Toronto and you have all these Caribbean friends. How come you've never pulled in any of those Caribbean friends and have them a part of your journey to show that representation? Let me bring on the people who have influenced and shaped my identity, because as well as you are partaking in our culture, we've also influenced and shaped your identity too. So it's just being able to share that sentiment and say that these are the people who have contributed to that.
Again, it's so simple. Like, think about the people you claim you care about, listen, and do better. That's all.
Right? That's a great note to end that conversation on. Do better, be more inclusive, and we only value ourselves by not allowing other people to walk over us. So I'm glad that we have these voices here that can speak up on it. And on that note, we will end this conversation here and open it up again in the comments for anything anyone wants to express, good or bad, whatever the case is. We'd love to hear your thoughts and be able to have a conversation about this if you were previously maybe, you know, a little confused as to why the Caribbean community was upset, and how anyone can be an ally to us in these times. So thank you guys for your thoughts and your opinions. Bye.